Welcome to Agency Ascend, the podcast where we bring insurance professionals together to learn, share, and grow. I'm your host, Chad Brummett, and with me today is our managing partner, Christopher Lacey.
Howdy, howdy.
We're also excited to have Jessica McBurney on, our newest regional vice president.
Hey there.
Jessica brings with her a broad background from the captive side, which is actually our topic for today. We want to actually dive into that understanding of what is a captive versus what is an independent, right? And then your firsthand experience of what that looks like coming from the captive side into the independent space, lessons learned, and crucial things you've learned along the way. So with that,
Well, do we want to start with a introduction? Kind of what's your background?
So I say that I went kicking and screaming into insurance because it was not the original plan, which I feel like for most people, they don't grow up saying, hey, I drew this little policy.
I think it's like less than 10% of people grow up going, I want to be in insurance.
I really want to do risk management. It's exciting.
Well, risk management sounds way cooler
It
than
does.
insurance.
I mean, that could go into a whole different department there, risk management. But overall, there's not a whole lot of people that are saying, hey, insurance is just so enthralling. Let's go down this path. I saw a family member, my dad, build an agency. I was in high school when he ended up becoming a captive agent and building, and I saw what it did for my family at a high level, but I was like, not going that path, not interested at all. So went hospitality industry, did a couple other things, and then I went kicking and screaming in because once we sold our restaurant and I went and looked at a few other different industries, I recognized pretty quickly that there wasn't a lot of other industries that had the same amount of opportunity, freedom, and flexibility, where you really have this marriage of large corporate companies working with small independent business owners. And that's a pretty fascinating marriage, if you will. And seeing that firsthand and being in small business ownership, I was like, I can't really do anything else now that I know the small business side of things. So that's how I found the farmers district side of things, so the distribution side of things, and went and became an agency business consultant for a large district in Los Angeles, which, if you know LA, it's kind of a bunch of different little cities combined. So you're dealing with a lot of very different types of people. So kind of built out working with individual agency owners there. Found my way to the promised land of Texas.
you got here as soon as you could.
Yeah, couldn't get the pedal down fast enough. And then continued to grow with farmers in a different capacity in good old Austin. Found my way up to DFW, and then through a series of what became very fortunate events, found the independent channel later than I would have liked now being here. But
so
really
you
happy.
would say that when you got into the captive or in insurance as a general, it was one of those things that kind of sucks you in because
Totally.
you get into it and it's like this is its whole own world.
Oh, yeah.
And you can go captive, you can go independent, you can go
Just
carrier.
keeps getting broader, really, once you're in it.
You've been in it now going on how many years?
Over 10.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
really.
every year it's like
first
there's a
job,
new thing.
I mean,
there's
15.
a new area I can jump into.
Yeah.
And on the new, right? So one thing, we're going to brag on you a little bit. After 10 years, you actually got to have a brand new. You closed the first agent this week.
I did.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations on it. So what is that like closing something on the independent side versus?
Oh, that's a good question, Chad. It's actually very different. And I think it's different because, number one, my eyes are much wider, much more opened. And I think that the caliber of agency and their preparedness is different. And I don't say that in any slight to the captive model. I think that captive model is really incredible because it's kind of like an agency in a box is how I describe it.
Right.
You're walking in and this is really a one-size-fits-all model. And that's powerful, especially for people starting out, because you're getting, this cookie-cutter training, this ability to opt into marketing programs, but they want one thing, and you're going to be built one way, really. And then coming onto the independent side, it's like, we have this whole giant world. Who do you want to be? So now the conversation with new members is, who do you want to be? Let's define that, and let's make sure who you want to be aligns with the kind of resources and support we can give you and aligns with the direction we're going. So it feels really different because it feels like we're so much more aligned and we're going to take off so much faster. And I'm really, really, really excited about this group. I think, funny enough, right, as we know, this group happens to be led in their insurance department by a former farmer's agent. So we've just totally gotten to build this relationship on what we knew versus what we know. And it's going to be really exciting to see them build.
Yeah, I would, one of the things I get a kick out of watching you come into the independent space and making it your own is you're like, hey, I have this really great idea. I'm thinking about X, Y, Z. And I'm like, oh, yeah, go talk to John. Go talk to so-and-so. And you're like, oh, this is already here? And
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, it's here. And you're just like,
wild.
It's something new all the time.
I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it.
So with the newness, right? I mean, you talked about like the insurance in a box.
Mm-hmm.
If you're somebody looking at getting into insurance, what would actually make you lean towards going to the captive side versus coming to an independent like us?
I think that for people starting out, like, hey, I want to enter into insurance for the first time, captive is a great model because you're going to go in and they're going to say, hey, you got to do X, Y, and Z, but we're going to give you some tools to do X, Y, and Z. But they're not going to go as far in depth. It's going to be, hey, this is the direction that we're going. So obviously, I field a lot of conversations every day with people that are like, hey, I have this auxiliary business to insurance, whether that be mortgage lending, whether that be I work in a car dealership, whether that be I'm in wealth management, right? There's a whole host of other industries that cross paths with ours every day. And they're like, hey, I got this bright idea in my head today that it would be fantastic for me to go open an insurance agency. And I'm like, that is a fantastic idea. But diving into the independent space, you need a much bigger roadmap than what you're prepared for.
Yeah.
We're not hopping on the highway and you're automatically going, 75, 80 miles an hour. You have to figure out how to get your license and get the vehicle and get through driving school, right? So I think that that's one of the things that can be powerful in the captive space is, oh, cool, you feel like you have a bolt-on business situation here. Why don't you go learn in this space and figure out if you really want to do this and get the right foundation, and then when you're really ready to play in this space and go 110 miles an hour in the fast lane, you're ready to weave around traffic, we're ready for you in the independent model because we can help you get there so much faster and stronger, but you gotta have an initial foundation because we just don't. I think the independent landscape doesn't have the capacity for initial startup in a lot of ways. Like, we're not going to teach you what coverage is. We're not going to teach you comp and collision, right? Like, come in with that.
Yeah, we'd prefer that
We
that
prefer,
you already have
yes,
that knowledge.
There's avenues for it,
Yeah.
but the other piece to that is, and I won't say that we don't have that in the independent space, or you're going to have to go be a producer. And that's a fantastic roadmap too. And I will say just another major difference there, being a producer in the captive model, you were capped really a lot lower than you are in the independent space. In the captive model, because an owner's margins are just running thinner due to their comp structure being lower and them just not having a wide opportunity for a lot of clients, your product only really fits a small percentage of the market. You don't have that extra revenue to really bring in
different lines of business.
Yeah, and
different
it's
areas of
hard to
focus.
compete with talent because good talent's expensive. So to keep a really good producer, they either have to keep being able to grow their book or you have to give them enough to start to do that. And when you're running on such thin, again, margins because of your comp, you really can't you either build that talent and then they go somewhere else, or you can't afford to bring in the good talent. And that's something that's very different on the independent side is I didn't see a lot of really happy producers that were making more than agency owners. And that was honestly a big shock coming over here where I'm like, wait, that producer makes how much as an employee? Like they're super happy? Like,
yeah, it's funny. So obviously we've got our sister company, Coverica Inc., and you'll have producers that are making $700,000, $800,000 in revenue as they're growing their business. And they have decided, I don't want to own my own shop, and have fully leveraged all of their weight behind being a good producer, being an advocate for their clients, and they do quite well. The SIAA, or kind of our model, is for the ones that say, no, I want to own my own piece
I
of real
want
estate.
my name on the door.
I
yeah.
want my name on the door.
So then what's the difference between you take somebody that spent 20 years with farmers, right? President Circle,
Love those guys.
They're phenomenal, right?
Great clients.
But beyond being a great client for us, what's actually like the difference between them going, you know what, I just want to be a producer and actually doing well in that world versus, no, let's step out and start over in the independent world?
But I think that's an individualized question, right? Because
Yeah.
people are made up differently. And I think that those that are really happy, let's call it making $500,000 a year as a producer, that's so awesome. But there are people that are cut from a different cloth, I believe, that are like, hey, I'll take the responsibility. I'll take less money and more headaches, more trials and tribulations to risk putting my name on something. And there's just people that have a different risk aversion built into them. And we talk about this a lot, right? Because we go through the culture index and you can't keep those people in a box. And even if they're making an exorbitant amount of money, whatever that number is for them, you're never going to keep them in a box because they need what they need, right? And those tend to be the president's council guys because they're going to hit that no matter where they are.
They don't know how not to. I would add to that. It's kind of a philosophy of if you can't be in an organization or be in a shop that fits your ethos, that fits your culture, and you can't find it, that's when you need to go build it. And so you look at some of these guys, the presidents, a lot of them on any captive, not just farmers, it doesn't matter which one it is. They're sitting there going like, I cannot, I have a certain select group of clients and I want to be able to meet all of their needs. And I'm limited to just this one slice. Obviously, not to keep dropping farmers, but they've started with Craft Lake and they have some other options. And so they're starting to pair into that. But the reality is if I'm sitting as an agency owner and I have built these 20-year relationships with my clients, I want to help them. And if I can only offer them one thing, that makes it very difficult. And that's when I typically see a lot of these captives go, hey, what other options are out there? And then to tell them that, they're going to have to sell and restart and come over, the ones that really understand that and internalize that and says, you know what, no, this is the emancipation, this is the real deal I need to do. And I'm tired of being either, on the sideline or being limited. I want to be more.
Emancipation.
Emancipation.
That's pretty good. I'm going to emancipate you from your company. Don't worry, we're here.
Yeah, we're
sign
here
a few
for you.
documents.
Yes.
That's pretty good. I think that's the bottom line too, Chris, to your point, is when you have a business owner that wants their name on the door and wants to take that full responsibility, there comes this impasse point, no matter who you are, where if you care enough about your clients, you're going, I only have a limited amount of options. And I think that every business owner has to ask themselves the question of, am I doing what is wholly right for my clients by only offering one option? And that could be that they're just targeting people that really fit that option, right? Which is, again, casting them out of a larger marketplace, which they have to be able to stomach and know, hey, this is not my market. And a really good coach or district manager,
that's actually,
they're going to teach them that and say, hey, are you prepared to play in this space? Is this your market? And we talk about that a lot, right? What's your market? But for those people that are looking to really build in a different part of the market that doesn't fit that product, they're being pigeonholed, or they're constantly in this state of battle, the state of turmoil in themselves on, am I doing what's right by the client or the company?
Yeah.
And we really get to be more flexible and moldable in this space because obviously we have carrier relationships too, and we want to do right by those carriers, but
each of them has their own bucket or their own target that they're going after.
Yes, and each agency owner has the ability to then figure out how to properly grow those markets, grow those relationships with those individual carriers and do it the right way. And that's why we have a growth coach, right, that sits down with all new members and existing members, and they're constantly going, what is your market? What is your book made of? What carrier relationships do you need? Which ones do you need to maybe dissolve? What new markets do we need? And that's an ongoing conversation. You're not going to get that in a captive channel because it's not changing, or they're changing, they're not telling you.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's a
and
whole
then you lose it.
Another conversation.
So, but even pursuant with that, we'll focus real quick on like the commercial marketplace. If I have a customer that started his company, he's going to qualify for a select few markets, right? And then when his business continues to grow, continues to expand, and he's now gone from 20 employees to say 100 employees, and so long and continuing in that growth, he's going to be able to qualify for higher level commercial contracts. I mean, one day he's Liberty, and then he's over there at Lloyd's. I mean, that's a huge change. And they'll say, well, why didn't I start off at Lloyd's? You couldn't afford it. B, you wouldn't have qualified. And yeah, they have a lot of tools and they have a lot of resources for you, but you weren't ready for that, because you're looking at the growth of your clients.
And so that's the word I wrote was evolution, right?
Yeah.
So the evolution, not just with the market, but also with the clients themselves. Is there a particular time frame where, like, a captive says, my book, my client base has evolved beyond the current offerings, and kind of what's like a red flag that would be a good indicator for a captive to say, maybe it's time for me to start looking?
Yeah, Jessica, when do you usually lose them on farm? No.
No, I think it's a really good question, because we often talk about the statistic that 85, 90% of agencies don't make it past 250,000 in revenue.
Yep.
And what also is interesting is independent, we talk about revenue. We're talking about what money is coming into a business. All businesses have revenue. And previously, in a different life, we all just talked in premium terms, which premium,
Can't
yes.
eat premium. Carriers eat premium. We eat revenue.
It's a measurement in the industry, and it's an important measurement, but we're not talking about the tactical money that's coming into a business. We're not talking about operating business. And I think that when we're talking about those metrics for, let's say, a captive agent at that 3 million mark, that even 2 to 3 million mark, you're starting to expand beyond the reach of what you're really going to do there.
You just said it.
2 to 3 million in premium. See, look what I'm doing. I'm going back. 2 to 3 million, which would be a much smaller agency on our side of things, right? But in the captive space, I think that's yeah. If we're really looking at like an average size, it's probably a little smaller than that. So that like 2 to 3 million mark, you hit this plateau point where you really have to ask yourself some serious questions on, am I going to invest a lot to build past this point? Am I going to acquire? How many staff do I need to bring on to get to the next level? And I think that a lot of that's going to be obviously dependent on the person, the foundation, the financial backing that they have in that.
I'd say savviness, like how well do they understand? I mean,
how fast did it take them to get there?
Oh, yeah.
It's a big one.
If it took me 10 years to get to 50,000 revenue, I've got a whole different issue.
Right. So from us, though, right, what's from the independent side? Same question, though. What
I look for when I'm talking to captive agencies, because they've cut their teeth on being able to sell. The farmers, the nationwides, a lot of the other captive models, they have learned through the trenches and through the battles, I can sell this product.
The hardest part.
I think that's the hardest part, and that's the one attribute I'm like, do not lose that. That is astronomically one of the best things that you've picked up along the way, because each carrier likewise is got its own target market. So when I see somebody that's growing, a 20% close rate on a captive model, and they're losing opportunities on potential clients because their box does not extend to that. Those are guys that I'm like, hey, you're going to have a much higher close rate when you move to the independent side, because you're going to have more options. You go from one proverbial suit in the closet to having 12. And so is that going to help you? Absolutely. Our close rate, what we like to see on the independent side, is usually around 80%. That's for the agency. But then you have each individual carrier that you're representing that's going to be different. And so you need to be able, on the independent side, navigate and work through that. And like you said, that's where a lot of our growth coaches and our Access Plus mentors can help. I would say if you're booking $50,000 in revenue a year in new business, if you can do that in a captive model, you're killing it. What would you say was the qualifications for the President's Circle? Is it something to that?
President's Council is a little different, because you basically take your top-notch people, like really your 1% to 2%, and then you had leadership that eventually took like the largest group and decided who was the most phenomenal. So they never had any written guidelines on exactly what it took to get there. You basically had to be the best of the best and then beat that. And then maybe you'd be in the running. But we did have something called Toppers Club, which a much larger percentage of agents hit, and those metrics were laid out. But you had more lines of business that you needed to hit, but smaller qualifications for them,
Yeah.
right?
Well, life and health.
Yeah, life insurance is huge in those circles. So if you were a big life insurance person, you could really not do much else, and you were going to be at
The life guy.
yeah, you're going to be at the head of the table. We'll put it that way.
I personally, if I can get all my members and any agency that's looking to come to us, if they could book $50,000 in production or commission per year and continue that growth trend, they will be a sizable partner 2-3 years down the road. And there's so much leveraging, there's so much momentum that comes with that, and a lot of that is, and I'm going to say this because there's no silver bullet to this. It's literally picking up the phone, advocating for your clients, talking to them, and not trying to simulate that client relationship. You got to be able to take care of your customers. And that's where I think the independent side brings a lot of value. But I'm seeing with AI and a lot of the other technologies that's coming in is people are wanting to leverage those tools, which I love. I think we definitely need to do that. At the same time, I don't want to see our industry move to a non-relationship side.
I was saying there's nothing that replaces genuine relationships.
Yes. Breaking bread, being able to sit across the table from somebody.
Yeah,
That's huge.
we solve problems. We help people grow. Take somebody from the stage of a newlywed to first-time parent to starting a business, selling a business.
Yeah.
Succession planning.
Yeah.
What happens if one of the partner passes away? I've had 3 of our clients that have passed. And being able to come in, be next to their family, help them transition that's a huge value add that I don't know how AI would do that.
It doesn't.
So
It just doesn't. So now this might be, so one of the things we've talked about is everything up to this point has been other captive agents maybe coming into the independent side, right? Mm-hmm. What if I'm a young entrepreneur?
whippersnapper.
Whippersnapper.
All right, so now we know who the 60.
Hey, I have a lot of friends with a lot of eclectic things. I'm sorry.
All right,
You saying
so
60 is old?
no, I'm saying 60 is the new 40.
Hey, well, okay, for our listeners, I'm the old man in the shop because I restore wooden boats and classic cars, and most of my friends are in their 70s, so that's why he's saying that. Give a little context to that.
Yes. But so I'm the young guns blazing. I've built a business, sold it. I want to get into insurance. Mm-hmm. Independent or go back to the captive side?
Ooh, how much money you got?
I just sold a business. All right, say I've got $250,000 to invest.
Okay.
I think most business savvy individuals, whether they're whippersnappers or not, are going to look at what does my array of options look like to be able to suit my consumer that's going to bring revenue into my business. And the more options should equal more clients, which equals more revenue. So I think that, again, back to the basic principles of how to build a business and the viability of it, unless you're going to have an extremely niche product and you've got this channel that is absolutely just going to crush that and you know how to deliver that seamlessly and you're the best at it, then maybe you're going to attack that way, right?
So that'd be more of like the captive side?
I'm saying that I think would be the way to execute a captive side and make it work. But we all know sitting here that whatever product is in the captive channel, we've got a carrier on the independent side that's going to deliver that product, if not a better version of that product. So you can execute on both. But just overall, if you're somebody that's looking at insurance in general, I think that you're saying, hey, what allows me options for my client?
Yeah.
And that's going to be independent.
But we're going to have to do that differently though, right? Because all I have is money. I don't have experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way, if I was in that shoes, putting myself in that shoes, what I think I would do is knowing, and see, I know too much, but there's like a 30-year hiring gap. But you have a bunch of 68 and up agency owners in our industry that do not have succession plans. They do not have a young person that wants to come in and roll up their sleeves and work. And so I would go to some of these guys and I'd say, hey, look, I want to do a cash infuse. money down. I want you to be my mentor. I want to learn all your deals, and I want to buy you out. My goal is to come in underneath you, learn everything, and eventually buy you out, take care of your retirement, and own this at the end of the day. That's probably what I would attempt to do. Otherwise, I would try to build up as much liquidity as possible to go out and buy, say, $500,000 in revenue agency so that I could have those contracts. So that's probably what I would do.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do look at it that way, because when they have conversations with us or they go look independent, they're like, yeah, I want to get started. Here's all the money that I have. Let's go. And then it's like, well, money doesn't still buy you carrier relationships. I mean, I've even seen that. That was surprising for me moving over, like, oh, I should be a kid in a candy store. Everything's available, right?
Yeah.
Because there's always been this stigma, like, okay, we got
Look,
one
I
product.
got all this money.
Yeah. So, but you have to, again, going back to the if there was a silver bullet, it's relationships, right? Which is just the foundation of who we are as humans. Is relationship trumps all. But I think that the other piece to that is people come in and they go, money, okay, I'm going to buy this, but there's due diligence that has to be done on that book of business to know that those carrier relationships are going to extend over. Or like you said, you have to go work for that agency, stay under the umbrella of that business that's been built out, and you have to learn and really keep that principal agent that owns that relationship with the carriers. And then eventually, as they know you can maybe extend those over, or you got to work with somebody like us who has the carrier relationships that can vet the book before you buy it. And we're going to the table with our reputation saying, hey, you want to buy this book of business? Well, we're going to go to all the carriers and talk about how we vetted you and that you're ready. And this is the education plan to do that. Or if you aren't somebody that wants to go into buying an agency and working underneath that principal for a certain amount of time, then you can use your money to hire somebody that maybe does not have the capital, but has the experience you can work with, that you can direct, but you can get some of the industry knowledge from, or they can train and build out a whole team underneath you, and you're the principal managing partner that's really running business operations, but you're not in the day-to-day product.
Yeah, I mean, you got a litmus of high caliber producers that are sitting out there. They're like, I don't burden me with ownership. I want to go out and sell. I get joy out of helping people and selling a policy. That's what I live for. Those are the guys that you want to say, hey, come to me.
Yep.
I'll handle the business. If you're an entrepreneur, I'll handle the business side of it, but I need you to go out and write, and I want to leverage your relationships to be able to help give you that ecosystem that you've been desperate to find. As well as, I would say, because we got other people that come in with, I have all these leads, I have all these opportunities, I want to start an agency. Partner with an agency first. Make certain that what you have, because if you're coming to me and all you have is a bunch of monoline homes, I'm going to be like, I'm not interested. You don't control your client base. And so I want to be the one-stop shop for your clients' needs. That's their home, their auto, their business. I want to be all of that for them. And I can't do that if I'm just getting a first grab look at their home.
You know, what's interesting about that piece too is I wish that there were more people that grouped together skill sets and built a better foundation. Like you see a lot of these smaller agencies and it's like, oh, well, I want to do all of it. And it's like, look, the depth of knowledge that you need to do this well, it's going to take years to get to that scope. I mean, right, we talk about John Sutter
about riches in those niches.
Yeah. And
that's Mick Hunt. I mean, his deal. That was excellent.
You just see different people, different levels of knowledge in this industry, and it takes so long going back to, you know, kind of the baby boomer generation that's got this huge amount of wealth in the knowledge base, right? And I just don't understand why more people don't band together. It's like, look, you're fantastic at personal lines. You're fantastic at a couple pieces in commercial. I'm fantastic at this other piece of commercial or financial services. Why don't we work together under the umbrella and let's make a better agency that suits everybody, but we're really good at our section of the business, you know? Like, I feel like everybody wants to go out there and grab it all, and you just can't grab it all well. Not without a really great team.
Either.
Yeah, not quickly. Not without a great team. I know some people do it, but I just wonder why there aren't more people that are like, hey, I'm going to take all the great pieces and put them together. And I've kind of thrown that idea out to a few people that have come my way, and I'm like, hey, like there's nothing wrong with building in a partnership. Now, partnerships are hard. Don't get me wrong.
Definitely
and it doesn't
want
have to
an
be
agreement. Definitely. All my legal hats come on.
So I
like,
say that, and I'm like, okay, I also get that piece. But I think there are ways to do it well, right? And that's also, again, where we can come in and say, hey, look, there are ways to build a partnership well. And I had a mentor back at Farmers, the district manager that I used to work for, and he said something that has stuck with me for years. And because I did not get it when I first came on board, and I think he really taught me this, but he said, life becomes so much different when you're confident in who you're not. And so when you're talking about producers that are like, hey, I just want to produce versus own a business, being confident in who you're not. Okay, I'm not the person that loves operations. Like we talk about this, right, Chad? Like, who wants to live in a spreadsheet? Are you somebody that likes to live in a spreadsheet? Because that's not me. But a really great principal might be that person that lives in a spreadsheet, but they're not the person that's building relationships and talking to clients. So going back to that, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity in the marketplace for people to join together, especially as the market starts to open. Exactly. Yes. How do we leverage this to grow bigger?
That's why we have
faster
relationships even with IAD, NIA, and some of these other groups. It's like, hey, let's get co-opetition is another phrase I like to use, but you've got people, there's so much opportunity, there's so much business that can be written. So if you know something and you can help another agent bring value to their client, they're never going to do it the way that you do it. At the same time, it's like you're helping out your partner or you're helping out somebody in your industry. And here's the reality. They may remember that when they're looking time to sell. And it's like, hey, I worked with ABC agency. They were very instrumental in helping me. I like those guys. I want to partner with them or I want to sell to them.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you, that really stood out yesterday at our kickoff event.
Oh, yeah.
It was amazing. 100 plus agents, carriers. And
I told my it was a little hectic because I was like, man, I don't think we're going to get 40 people here. And so I guess Jessica and Mindy took that as a challenge and they go, bet. And literally they came to me and says, so we definitely have 40. We're now at 140. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. Okay. Well, can we fit that into the room?
We did.
Did.
And it was phenomenal. But the amazing thing was just that. It was when you listen to the conversations, agent to agent, carrier to agent, it was all just that. It was, what can we do to help each other?
Yeah.
What's working, what's not? How do we grow? And that's, I think, really unique to the insurance world because it does come back to those relationships.
Yep.
And we genuinely want to help each other. It was just phenomenal.
I think business owners want a safe place, dare I say that, but I think that's what it is, a safe place to mastermind with other business owners. And part of our group, I think everybody knows that they're vetted pretty hardcore and that they kind of have to be at a certain level to be a part of the group. And that's somewhat in a prestigious way, but in a way where, hey, we got the heart, we have the ethos, but we want to be aligned is really the bigger thing. And so when they come to an event, I think that they recognize this is a good place to network. Because even though all these people are in my space and we're all doing the same thing, we can talk here and like we're benefiting the group because we're aggregating as a group, which is a big deal in a way, but we're also standalone businesses that are running things the way that we want to run them, and we can gain knowledge from each other. And I mean, I even saw that in talking to Teresa Kitchens, who has her own podcast, right? And she's built out this whole platform, and she's got a mastermind group.
She said she would come on, so I gotta follow
Teresa,
up on that.
watch this. You're next. We're excited
if you're
to have
listening.
you. She's a hoot. But it was really cool because she's bought several agencies, right? And she kind of was talking a little bit about how she started versus where she's at. And I know she works with several agents, and there are several agents talking to her about just the things they run by her. And it was so cool just to see that cross-functional, really, conversation of, hey, I'm at this stage in my agency. What do I need to hit? What's next? And then also those agents that were going to carriers saying, I'm at this stage of my agency. I think I'm ready for this relationship. Or even carriers going, foremost, we're opening up. We're ready for you to come on board.
Yep.
And we got to create a space for that last night where all of those different conversations were happening. And that was really cool to see all that. And everybody had different needs, but it was a space for all of them to be able to be met. And that's a unique position to be in.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Well, and I would do a shameless shout out. If you are, listening to this podcast, you're listening with our team here, and you're interested in figuring out, well, come visit us. I mean, we often have prospects. Yeah, we love visitors.
We'll take you to lunch.
Yeah, definitely take you to lunch. But when we have these events, we try to make it to where it does have an element of prospecting. Where they can come in, be treated like a VIP, but also get to see. It's seeing what the network and the relationships look like. And I will, in part of my shameless plug is that I think to date we're about 90% close rate on anybody who comes in and visits.
Because I think they see the authenticity behind it, right? Without us in the room.
It's also not us selling it. It's our team. It's like all of our clients are over there.
Yeah, they get to ask them questions. We're not saying, hey, obviously we've had a conversation. We know that you would be a good prospect for our group, right, on your agency. But when they get there, they get to talk to members without us there and ask hard questions. And we don't know how they're going to answer is the truth. And they're going to get the good, the bad, the ugly, right?
I will say, I sent a prospect to somebody. Okay, so he asked, give me your favorite member and your least favorite. And so I did that. And not having any idea what was going to be said. And the one that I thought was my least favorite, he goes, "Oh, they're great. I usually argue with them, but they help me out a lot." I'm just like, "Oh, so you just doing this for fun? Oh, okay, that's cool." Yeah.
Their communication style.
It comes back to those relationships. Yeah. And the other good thing, and I'll add on to your plug here, is that other 10%, they walk away with a place to go, right? Because we realize not everybody fits with us, right? So if you don't have a home here, part of that is we'll tell you, but we'll also give you option A, option B, option C, so you can go explore and find that right place for you.
Yeah, we network with a lot of our competition. Agents Alliance out in Denton, they're a phenomenal MGA shop. And have a lot of resources, and I'll typically send some members over there if it's a better fit.
Yeah.
If for whatever reason they just don't have what they need for the independent side, that's where I look at, hey, have you considered going to Farmers? Have you looked at some of the
We have sent people there. Yeah, I don't know if they know, but we have. We've been like, hey, this fits what you're looking for because it can be different. And honestly, I mean, I've had a lot of conversations with people, and sometimes halfway through, I'm like, look, I'm gonna be really honest with you here, and I believe that by being honest, I'm doing you a service, myself, but we're bettering the industry. This is your expectation, but this is the reality. Yes. And you can keep having these conversations looking for a different outcome, and you can keep trying to go look for those carrier relationships, but you're not in the place where you're going to get them right now unless you go this route. And you can go that route, but I'm not this route.
Yeah.
And if you want to eventually get here, you're going to have to go through a whole different road, and we got a few more steps. And I think I can also say that, and I try to be as authentic as possible, because also we know when I originally found y'all, I was looking to start an agency, right? Yeah. And I share that often with people on, hey, I fell into this, and I was coming from the captive, kind of lost in the wilderness. And I was looking actually on a Facebook page that I don't know if I can name, because I don't think they were supposed to.
It's not that
bad. No, it was fine. It's a really great Facebook page, Insurance Soup, that I think a lot of people go on because, again, everybody wants to talk and have a place to talk about things. And some people were dropping names on just different independent groups, and I saw a bunch of acronyms, and I was like, why are there so many acronyms? I mean, and then I was like, I'm going to look into this to become an agent, and the timing was not right in my life. But somehow I ended up staying here anyways in a different place. But I think that's the cool thing, is that we get to partner on what does the path look like for you. And I just did that with a couple of people last week where they were like, hey, I'm not ready for what y'all are yet, but I'd really love to come back in a couple of years once I get this and this figured out. And it's like, I was like, yeah, absolutely. And if you're looking for a different type of, MGA to go through, or you're really just looking to do production first, like, let me know. I'll talk to you about it. I'll even tell you if there's some things I would look at twice in that contract. Absolutely. So that you know what you're what that exit or what it's gonna look like as far as a path in or out.
Completely aware.
Because that's I think, and just to bring up another thing that really stirs up is, in insurance, if you're an agent, I think one of the most serious things that you can do is really pay attention to the contract of where you're at, whether that's in captive, whether that's in independent.
And I think that's a phenomenal topic for our next episode.
Oh,
actually.
That's a good one. We could talk an entire episode on contracts because. Yeah, if you want to talk about contracts, which I'm sure you do,
I nerd out.
Join us. Yeah. Sir Isaac, we have a nerdy topic for you.
There you go.
Contracts.
Awesome.
But get your own attorney. We don't have any legal advice.
Yes.
But that's a good one.
No, well, thank you so much for joining us today, Justin. It's been absolutely wonderful. And one of the things I'm sure you know is we like to wrap up by putting our guest on the spot.
With hot seat.
with what's a book, quote, magazine, something that you've read
Do
recently.
they still print magazines?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. That's made an impact on you that you've read recently and you could share with our audience.
Okay. Right now, I have just started kind of knee deep in a book called I'm Surrounded by Idiots.
And we take that personally.
There might have been a reason why I started reading the book.
Right
Just
before
kidding.
this podcast, or no?
I said, wow, this aligns with my life. No, I'm just kidding. That's not it at all. It's actually goes into a little bit on how the DISC assessment was built, but how do you communicate with other personalities? And if you feel like somebody is an idiot because of how they communicate, which I often feel when I'm driving on 75 every day and I see how people drive, and my husband would probably agree with that because he's crazy with driving. But anyways, it talks about how to communicate with different personality types and obviously lumps personalities into different groups. But I think anything that has to do with how do we communicate better is really powerful and is a great learning and development tool. So
Yeah, I don't think
That's awesome.
Do you know who authored that book? Or I mean, the title's pretty
Thomas
legit.
something. I could look it up. Hold, please.
He was an idiot.
He was a no.
He was surrounded by idiots.
He was surrounded by it.
Yeah, I'd recommend along the same point with the DISC assessment is actually emotional. Oh, you got it. What was
Thomas Erickson.
it? Thomas Erickson.
Thank you.
Thomas Erickson. Surrounded by Idiots. I actually have to listen to that one. Emotional Intelligence 2.0. They have a bunch of different assessment tools that you can leverage. And I would say, based off of our conversation, identifying who you are, what makes you tick is equally important as you branch off into this journey. Because you may find that, hey, I'm more of that numbers guy, and I lack the sales side, or I'm more of that sales side. I'm lack the person that comes in and picks up everything after me because I screwed it up. Both of which are phenomenal models, but you need to know who your core strength, what your drivers are. So the emotional intelligence one is by Travis Bradbury and Gene Greaves. I've been rereading some of these and going back through and looking at my assessments. So I typically recommend that you do something like that at least once a year, just to learn something a little bit different.
Yeah. Awesome. And for me, mine was actually Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud. I figured timing just was very convenient, but it's actually on, for us to get where we need to go, we have to have endings in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some are planned, some are thrust upon us, but it's how we deal with those changes, how we proactively make those happen and help them through. So for any captive out there, this is where I'll do my shameless plug. Any captive out there that's looking for the courage to make that change, check it out. Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud. So, to our listeners, thank you very much for tuning in to Agency Ascend. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe and leave us a few review. Until next time, keep growing and thriving.